So Eric Kane recently released an article, and normally I agree with a large chunk of what Kane has to say, or at the very least, I have an understanding of it and can see his position. This is not one of those times. This was, and I'm going to link to it below. This was in his article about the Metal Gear Solid 5 review fiasco. And there are two specific points that I'm going to go on tangents about with this. The first is how he describes the reviewers themselves as basically having no choice, no say, no agency of their own. They are just basically tools for the corporate overlord machine to use. And they can't say anything, they can't do anything, they just exist to serve the AAA developer up on high. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it got to the point where it felt like he honestly believed that other journalists had absolutely no agency at all, and they had no choice but to do this. No. They are human beings. They have a choice. Journalists have a choice. If they feel that something is unethical, which this was by a mile, they should not have done it. Oh, but then they wouldn't get reviews and they'd be financially hurt. Yeah. Let me put it this way. Which is more important? Being ethical according to the law, but especially having the appearance of ethical behavior to your readers, or money. If you choose money over ethics, that says a lot about you. That would be the point where I say, okay, I'm not reading your shit anymore. You've shown that you're a dishonest fuck, and you will do whatever it takes to make a dime. That's not fair. Other journalists would just keep doing that, and they would that kind of argument. The whole other people are doing it, so unless it's made illegal, they should still be allowed to. I'm amazed that this is legal in the first place. Second, let's follow suit that it is legal, so they have every right to if they want to make a buck. That means me, as the reader, has every right to say, fuck you, I'm not reading your shit anymore. They have a choice. They choose not to do anything and just follow suit. Somehow, and this leads into the tangent for the second part and the bigger issue I have with the article, that's our fault. Kane, and I'm summarizing this to a hell of an extent, which is why I am providing the link to the article itself so you can read it to make sure I'm not blowing smoke out my ass. Kane basically says that it should be up to us, the gamers ourselves, to be policing not only the AAA devs to make sure they don't do this kind of shit, but also the journalists to make sure that they stay ethical. Rather than, call me crazy, other journalists making sure that journalists stay on the straight and narrow. God damn it, this is basically how this lack of self-awareness, that it is not up to the readers to make sure that journalists stay straight, is how Gamergate in a lot of ways started. You had a journalist who slept around with someone that he wrote articles on. People brought this up, and instead of the editor-in-chief saying, I'm going to look into this and find out, and I'm going to put him on suspension if he did this, etc., yada, yada, instead of taking responsibility for the fact that he did this, which, by the way, little off topic, right quick. He's never denied. A year later, he's never denied this. I think he may have admitted it several times. Back on topic. Instead of taking responsibility for it and saying, yeah, this could have happened, we're going to look into this. And when it was shown that he did, they got defensive. Instead of taking responsibility for it, Totillo himself, every time you bring it up, he'll go, timeline! Timeline! There's a fucking timeline! It doesn't match! It doesn't match by the nanosecond! It doesn't match! I'm not kidding either. He will go on these tangents. I believe they got defensive because these are a group of people who were later found out to all be in the same mailing list for sharing opinions on things. Surprise, surprise. So my thinking is, let's pretend that doesn't exist in the first place. Let's take that out of the equation. Even before that was shown to be a thing, and he was not held accountable for this, I always figured it was because, well, if you hold one of them accountable, that means they all could be held accountable. So they can't shit where they work. So we can't punish one guy for sleeping around with a person he's wrote articles on, because if we do that, shit, we might get fucked one day because of this. No, can't have that come back and bite us in the ass. Journalists don't want to hold themselves accountable because they know that one day they'll fuck up and they'll be held accountable too. They should be the ones holding themselves accountable though, because oddly, that's their fucking job. And when people tried to hold journalists accountable, you know what they did in response? They wrote that their audience and their readers are dead. They are shit slingers. They are wailing hyper consumers, etc., etc., etc. Up to 26 articles in a 48-hour period, all mirroring the same bullshit. Why? Because we wanted a journalist to be held accountable for sleeping with someone he wrote an article on. So this is why Gamergate still exists, because to this day, journalists do not feel they should hold themselves accountable for anything. The problem herein lies, Kane thinks that gamers or people in general should be holding journalists account, should be the ones policing journalists, and we've seen that barely does bullshit. Journalists need to actually take a stand, say, no, I'm not going to do this, or no, this was wrong, you can't do this, and actually police themselves. Because apparently, when regular people do, they are dead to these journalists. And the lack of self-awareness that while he himself is making an article criticizing these journalists and says that it is not up to other journalists and that it is up to the people to be policing these journalists is mind-blowing. Maybe one day they will clean house and actually take responsibility for their shit. Who knows? Maybe they can do that so that they prevent Gamergate 2.0 from happening. I doubt it. But a man can dream. It's the Math Machine wailing at journalists that lack self-awareness to a degree I have not since seen. Peace out.